set him apart was the whispered tales about his extraordinary endowment. Women spoke of it in hushed tones, giggling behind their wrappers, while men nodded with a mixture of envy and admiration. Afemifuna's reputation spread like wildfire, igniting curiosity and desire in the hearts of women not only in Amaeke, but also in neighboring villages.
Oh my God!
He became the talk of the moonlit gatherings, the subject of endless gossip, and the secret fantasy of countless maidens and matrons alike. But Afemifuna was more than just his physical attributes. He was intelligent, kind-hearted, and hard-working. A skilled farmer, his yam barns were always full, and his palm wine was the sweetest in the land. Despite the attention he garnered, he remained humble, focusing on his work and family. Yet, avoiding the advances of the women was becoming an increasingly daunting task. From the playful young maidens who offered to help him fetch water from the stream, to the married women who suddenly needed their roofs mended, Afemifuna was constantly surrounded by admirers. One day, a young maiden named Adama, known for her beauty and wit, decided to confront him. "Afemifuna," she said, her voice teasing yet determined, "are you not a man? Why do you keep running from us like a frightened deer? Or is it that the stories about you are just tales to amuse the village?" Afemifuna chuckled, his deep voice resonating like distant thunder. "Adama, it is not fear that keeps me away. It is respect. I value the dignity of every woman, and I do not wish to bring dishonor to anyone's family." But Adama was relentless. "Then marry me," she challenged, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Surely the most wanted man in Amaeke should settle down with the most beautiful woman in the village." Afemifuna smiled but gave no reply. His heart was torn. While he was flattered by the attention, he longed for a genuine connection, not one based solely on his reputation. Meanwhile, the married women of the village devised their own schemes. They would invite him to their homes under various pretenses, offering him meals and gifts. Some even went as far as consulting the village herbalist for love potions. But Afamefuna, ever vigilant, politely declined their advances, leaving them both frustrated and awed by his discipline. The situation escalated when the women of the neighboring village of Amanquo began visiting Amaeke under the guise of attending the market. They lingered near Afamefuna's farm, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. Soon the elders of Amaeke grew concerned. The village's reputation was at stake, and they feared the tension might lead to conflicts. A council meeting was called, and the village chief, an elderly man with a wise demeanor, addressed Afamefuna. "My son," he began, "your presence has brought both pride and chaos to our village. You must make a choice. Settle down with a wife, or leave the village to find peace." Afamefuna nodded solemnly. He knew the time had come to make a decision, but before he could respond, an unexpected event occurred. A young widow named Olama, known for her wisdom and courage, stood up. "Why should Afamefuna be forced to choose under pressure?" she asked, her voice firm. "He has done nothing wrong. It is our society that has placed undue expectations on him." The crowd murmured in agreement. Olama's words struck a chord, and the elders decided to give Afamefuna the freedom to live his life as he saw fit. Inspired by Olama's courage, Afamefuna approached her later that evening. "You are the first to see me for who I truly am," he said. "Will you walk this journey of life with me?" Olama smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "Only if you promise to always remain true to yourself." And so Afamefuna found love in the most unexpected way. The gossip seems to gradually fading, but it doesn't seem so. Afamefuna and Olama's marriage became the talk of the town, not because of the union itself, but due to the details that accidentally spilled from Olama's lips in her moment of excitement. The day after their honeymoon, Olama, glowing with happiness and unable to keep her joy contained, stopped by Mama Emeka's salon to get her hair braided. Mama Emeka, ever the nosy conversationalist, noticed Olama's radiant smile. Olama, your face is brighter than the morning sun. What's the secret? Mama Emeka teased as she worked on another woman's hair. Olama, without thinking, giggled and said, "Ah, Mama Emeka, this marriage has shown me a new side of life. My husband Afamefuna is not just handsome, he's everything a woman could dream of." She leaned in and whispered, "He's blessed beyond measure, and he knows how to use it. I've never felt so alive." Mama Emeka's hands froze mid-braid. Her curiosity piqued. "Olama, you mean it? So the rumors about Afamefuna's gifts are true?" Olama, realizing her slip, tried to laugh it off, but Mama Emeka wasn't one to let juicy gossip pass her by. By the time Olama left the salon, the words, "Afamefuna is not just handsome, but he's also a god in bed," were already swirling around the room. Mama Emeka's salon was known as the village headquarters for gossip, and within hours the story spread like wildfire. Women who had once admired Afamefuna from afar now became even more determined to get close to him. They whispered about Olama's description of her honeymoon, and soon every corner of Ama and neighboring villages was buzzing with talk of Afamafuna's prowess. The attention was immediate and overwhelming. Women started inventing reasons to visit Afamafuna's home. Some claimed they needed advice on farming. Others brought gifts of food and drink, hoping to catch his attention. Even women who had never set foot in Amaeke before began finding excuses to pass through the village. Married women suddenly wanted to befriend Olama, claiming they admired her courage to marry such a famous man. Olama at first was flattered by the attention, but soon it became unbearable. Women would linger outside her compound hoping to catch a glimpse of Afamefuna. Some even came under the guise of borrowing utensils, only to linger longer than necessary, throwing suggestive glances his way. Afamefuna, on the other hand, was growing increasingly frustrated. He had thought that marriage would finally quiet the storm of attention surrounding him, but it seemed to have done the opposite. "Olama," he said one evening as they sat under the mango tree in their compound. "I don't know how much longer I can endure this. Everywhere I go, I feel eyes watching me." Olama sighed. She knew she was partly to blame. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said softly. "I was just so happy, and I let my guard down. But we'll face this together, my love." The growing obsession with Afamefuna didn't sit well with the men of Amaeke. Husbands began to notice their wives acting differently, spending more time at the market, dressing up unnecessarily, and speaking in hushed tones whenever Afamefuna's name was mentioned. Some even caught their wives sneaking glances at him during village gatherings. Tensions started to rise. One day, a group of men approached Afamefuna as he worked on his farm. Afamefuna, their leader Naji, said sternly, "You are a good man, but your presence is causing trouble in our homes. Our wives can't stop talking about you. We need you to address this issue before it gets out of hand." Afamefuna, though annoyed, remained respectful. "My brothers, I understand your concerns, but I have done nothing to encourage this behavior. I'm a married man, and I love my wife. I would never disrespect your homes." The men grumbled, but reluctantly agreed to let the matter rest for the time being. However, the situation continued to escalate. The breaking point came when a group of women from a neighboring village arrived at Afamafuna's farm one afternoon, claiming they wanted to learn his farming techniques. Olama, who had been suspicious of their intentions, decided it was time to take action. She stormed onto the farm, her voice ringing with authority. "Enough is enough," she shouted. "My husband is not a public attraction. If any of you have any respect for yourselves and your families, you will leave this place immediately." One of the women said, You, this second-hand woman, please let him come experience a real taste of what fresh, good-looking woman tastes like." Afamefuna grew bittered and said, "Please, you should never, ever in your lives talk to my wife in such manner again. Leave this place before I lose it." The women, embarrassed, scurried away. But the incident only added fuel to the fire. The story spread even further, and Olama realized that drastic measures were needed. After consulting with Afamefuna, Olama came up with a plan. They decided to host a community feast, inviting everyone from Mama Eke and the neighboring villages. During the feast, Afamefuna stood up and addressed the crowd. "My people," he began, "I have always been proud to be a part of this community. But the attention I have received is not something I ever sought. I am a married man, and my loyalty is to my wife Olama. I ask for your respect, not only for me but for her as well." Olama also spoke, her voice firm but kind. "We are grateful for your love and support, but it's time to put an end to this. Let us focus on building our community and strengthening our bonds, not tearing them apart with gossip and envy." The feast ended with a renewed sense of unity, and gradually the frenzy around Afamefuna began to die down. While there would always be whispers and admiration, the couple managed to carve out a peaceful life for themselves. The elders admired his courage and congratulated him for his boldness. One of the elders met him and said, "My son, you're a true son of your father, and also a true son of the soil. You're brave for coming out to speak over this particular issue. May the gods of our land be with you." Most of the men were very happy because this had been a nightmare for them, as their wives most times lose interest at home because of Afamefuna. They were all hoping this will be the end, but unfortunately it wasn't the end. The women wasn't really happy nor satisfied. To them this felt like an embarrassment or a defeat. One evening, as Afamefuna was coming back from the farm, a group of women ambushed him, forcefully hijacked him, and took him into the bush. They all forced themselves on him just to have a taste and be sure of all the rumors about him. One of the ladies refused to lay with Afamafuna. She saw how weak Afamafuna was. She ran away, knowing what would befall her for refusing to participate in the act. Immediately the other ladies chased and ran towards her, caught and beat her mercilessly to the extent she couldn't even say a word. She was weak, and they left her there. Afamafuna during this period quickly struggled and found his way to the village. Immediately he went down to Igwe's palace to inform him of what had happened to him. Before he could finish explaining, the other ladies stepped in. They already had their own plans, and they agreed to come to the palace to lie against Afamafuna that he forced himself on them, and that one of them is still at the bush, brutally injured. Immediately the king sent some men to go check on the lady at the bush, while Afamafuna was arrested by the palace guards. The elders agreed with the ladies, saying Afamafuna's stories were false, and for the fact that Afamafuna had been a major problem at the community, there was no way they could even give it a second thought. They tied Afamafuna's hands to his back, and the villagers gathered, and they start cursing him, saying it was an abomination. The chaos arose. Before you know it, Afamafuna was stoned to death. Olama heard voices at the palace and quickly rushed to go know what was going on. Reaching there, the deceased was her husband. Oh, she cried, my lovely husband. She was in shock. She wept her eyes off. She started saying all sort of things, laying curses and abuses to the elders, saying they should had contacted her first, that her husband Afamafuna would never, not even in his next life, try such a thing. He never did it, she said. It wasn't too long when they brought in the other lady. Unconsciously and weak, she was unable to speak about the whole event. However, she did explain how she and the other ladies forced themselves on Afamafuna. After the truth was revealed by the injured woman who had narrowly survived, the elders were consumed with shame. Their hasty judgment had not only taken the life of an innocent man, but had also exposed the village's flaws. Their inability to stand firm against mob influence, and their failure to truly uphold justice. They wept silently as they watched the aftermath of their actions unfold. The Igwe himself, a man revered for his wisdom, felt the weight of his error pressing down on him. He decreed that no one in the village would ever speak ill of Afamefuna again, for he had been wronged in the worst possible way. For Olama, life after Afamafuna's death was a constant battle between grief and resilience. She cried endlessly in the first weeks, refusing food and company. Her home, once filled with laughter and love, was now a silent reminder of her loss. Yet, in the midst of her sorrow, she felt the faint stirrings of life within her, a tiny glimmer of hope. She was carrying Afamafuna's child, the last piece of him she would ever have. As the months passed, Olama found solace in her pregnancy. The villagers, consumed by guilt, offered their help, but Olama refused most of it. She wanted to honor her husband's memory by staying strong. She worked hard on the farm he had left behind, ensuring that their unborn child would have a future. When the day came for Olama to give birth, the entire village held its breath. They saw this child as a symbol of redemption, a second chance to honor the man they had wronged. After hours of labor, Olama brought forth a healthy baby boy. She named him Ofo, meaning truthfulness, as a testament to the truth that had been revealed too late, and as a reminder to the village of the consequences of their actions. Ofo grew up under the loving care of his mother, who told him stories of his father, his kindness, his bravery, and the injustice he suffered. She raised him to be a man of integrity, teaching him to always seek the truth and to never let envy or falsehoods cloud his judgment. Over time, the people of Amaeki changed. The elders established new rules to ensure that justice would always prevail, no matter how loud the voices of the mob became. women and men alike learned to control their envy and desires, remembering the chaos that had unfolded because of unchecked rumors and selfishness. The women who had participated in the horrific act against Afamafuna were given the same fate they had inflicted upon him. Their families bore the shame of their actions. Olama never remarried. She poured all her love and energy into raising Ofo, ensuring that he grew up to be the kind of man his father had been: strong, kind, and just. Ofo, with his father's striking features and his mother's resilience, became a beacon of hope for the village. He reminded them not only of what they had lost, but also of what they could become. Olama lived to see her son grow into a man who carried the values of truth and justice with him wherever he went. And when her time came to join her beloved Afamefuna in the afterlife, she went peacefully, knowing that his legacy lived on through their son. Years later, the story of Afamefuna and Olama was told to children as a lesson about truth, justice, and the consequences of envy. A tale that transcended time. It became a story of redemption, a reminder that even in the face of great loss, hope and love could endure.